Before I ever buy a stock, I ask myself one simple question. Do I actually understand this business, what it does, and do I think that this business is going to exist for the next 5 or 10 years? That's my simple question that I ask myself before I buy any stock. So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through what I look for before I ever buy a stock, step by step and in plain language. If you are new to investing and if you want to learn about the framework that I've been using, that I can confidently say that it has been working for me, this video is for you. Make sure you like and you subscribe to make sure that this video goes far and wide. Now, like I always like to say when I do my videos, whatever I'm saying here is based on my personal experience. Investing comes with risks. Always make sure you manage your risk and you take what is relevant to you. I'm not a licensed financial advisor, therefore make sure you are aware of that. So let's start with the first things first. Like I mentioned, the first question and the most important question in my view is that what does this business actually do? This is very basic, but can you believe that sometimes in the past I used to just think that what I see on Bloomberg, there are a lot of good analysis that I see, of course, a lot of good analysis, sometimes even on Reddit, on X, on Facebook. But what I've seen is that investing is personal. So I like to go into a rabbit hole and understand what goods and services does this company provide. That's very important. Can I explain it in 1 or 2 sentences? It's as simple as that. If I can't clearly explain what the problem that business solves or is solving, who pays them and why, then I have no business being in that business, right? As an investor. So if a business is too complicated for me to understand, it's probably something that I should not be investing in. So that's as simple as that. So that's what I look for. Number 2, I ask myself, is this business I can see growing, right? Right now, the key question is, like, there's artificial intelligence, for example, right? I ask myself, is this business relevant to the key themes that are actually happening? You see, most of these big funds or even banks like JP Morgan, Morgan and Stanley, they usually produce reports to their clients and sometimes it's made public. They have themes that they think like, okay, this year I think this is something that is going to be topical, this is something that is important. And I like to pay attention to that and also do my own thinking, apply my own thinking to that. So it's not necessarily that it should be trendy, but it should be relevant. And I'm looking for companies that provide essential services or offer products people actually use or solve real or ongoing problems. So in my cases, I like businesses that I use, right? I'm talking as an example, I use a MacBook. I'm just seeing right now, Apple, they actually reported their earnings. I'm pretty confident they actually beat earnings. And these are businesses that have been there for some time. But the key thing is I have to know the right price. I have to understand the business in simple terms. I have an Apple Watch, I have a MacBook. So these are the products that I look at. And then I go deeper and deeper into this. And usually I look at the valuation of the stock, right? I use 2 basic frameworks: price to earnings ratio. That is something that gives me a rough sense of how much I would be paying for that relative to current earnings. Because when I'm buying shares, I'm betting that this stock is going to give me a good return in the future. So if I believe that is going to go up, I'm okay to pay the current price, because if it goes up, then it justifies my decision in that case, in a favorable case. Or I can then use what is called the discounted cash flow model. Again, these are just formulas, but they come with assumptions. I'm trying to just have a range, not a specific point. And then I go on to look at what analysts are saying. These are people who have, experience, who understand valuation. But again, nobody can predict the stock price direction with confidence. And sometimes they downgrade, upgrade, and it's after the fact. So I like to kind of like look at the range of what the most credible analysts are actually thinking in terms of the pricing, and I like it to be usually at the bottom of what most analysts are thinking, and also in addition to my modeling. So that's something that I look at. I also then look at if this business has a moat, does it have a competitive advantage? If you look at most of these businesses, for example, if you look at Amazon or Nvidia as an example, they have about 80% market share, right, in the GPU sector, in the sector where they produce chips, right? And that's very, very important because that allows them to play with the price. They can possibly increase the price without losing market share. Not necessarily, but at least it means when other competitors try to play catch up, they will still be compounding money. So that's the thing that I look at. And more importantly, I want to look at the management. Is this management honest? I have to know the CEO. What are their qualifications? Do they actually do what they say? Is it something that in them, what they say, are they selling a lot of shares? Not just those those like the pre-scheduled, exercising of shares. But I like to see them buying into the business. So that means they've skin in the game. So that's something that I like to look at. And I like to look at to see what they say, right? When they are doing their earnings call, do they talk about risks? Do they overpromise? And I know a lot of people, I don't want to bet against Elon Musk, but most of the time he overpromises and he underdelivers. In my experience, like they are failing to beat revenues right now. They just reported their earnings yesterday, and I think their sales dropped by 61%. And now he's talking about something else, going to AI and something. He's a smart guy, right? And what I've seen is that sometimes some CEOs, they overpromise, right? And of course, there are a lot of people who have become very rich on Tesla. And of course, on the other hand, there are people who have lost a lot of money by shorting or even just getting in when the stock price goes up. Like I know at some point it went to over 500. Now I was checking today, it's 416. But I think the more important thing is to look at the long term. Over time, is it a business that has free cash flows, that is growing free cash flows over the past 5 years? And there's a risk in just looking at the past, but I'm also projecting and looking at, is it profitable? Do they have a lot of cash and cash equivalents on their balance sheet? Their free cash flows, is it increasing? I don't like it when it's negative. And their long-term debt has to be declining. So those are the things that I look at. And of course, this can be industry specific. When I'm looking at the debt, it's a bit more technical. Now, I want to follow that business over time, to understand and to learn more about that business before I jump in, right? Because it's a relationship. You really have to know this person. In other words, if you buy shares, it's like you are being married to someone, right? So I want to understand and listen into their earnings call, see their major business updates, their strategies, and if my original reason why I invested changes whilst I'm invested, I reassess, and this is why I only invest and why I want to understand businesses. Now, when this is too much, I always tell some of my clients, sometimes you are better off buying index. Of course, investing is personal, right? But if you don't want to spend a lot of time reading reports and you just don't have the time, some people, they just buy index funds through exchange traded funds that track the major index funds. And that way you have a basket of companies that you actually have exposure to. So that's something that I've seen. So if you haven't subscribed, please make sure you subscribe. And if you want one-on-one coaching, make sure you can book the coaching on www.streetwiseeconomics.com. I have very limited spots there. Thank you so much for tuning in and following me on my journey. I will see you in the next one, and make sure you watch other videos that I have done. I have specifically went into detail and given you examples of how I actually research and where I actually get some of the information that I do consider when I'm investing. Thank you again, and bye-bye.